Shalom. Welcome to Tov, the Jewish News Channel. We are pleased to host and honored to host Lieutenant Colonel Sarit Zehavi, who is the founder of the Alma Center for Security in the North. And she's going to share with us her experiences on the northern border, in the northern front, actually, of our low-level war with Hezbollah, which the war's been going on for almost 40 years, but at the moment it's significantly hotter than it's been. And I'd like to ask Sarit, first of all, how are things there? What's going on in the north?
I wanted to tell you that this morning was quiet, but actually we had some alerts in the Western Galilee. Since this war started, since October 8th, actually, we see gradual escalation while every day we have attacks coming from Lebanon, mainly from Hezbollah, but not only, which include mortars, missiles, UAVs, infiltration tries, etc., anti-tank missiles, large scales, anti-tank missiles that are not only against tanks. It started from 2 attacks a day. Yesterday ended with more than 10. And in each attack can be much more than 1 missile. We had attacks of tens of missiles. IDF is retaliating and attacking the Hezbollah infrastructures in Lebanon, in South Lebanon, next to the border as well. So it was accurate to call it a low-level war or a war of attrition, the way you wrote it. Life are not normal here. 60,000 Israelis were evacuated from the area, which is 0 to 5 kilometers from the border. And I live 9 kilometers from the border, so it means that children hardly go to school. It's not a feeling of normal life here up north, like something ended in October 7th.
I think it's important for our viewers to understand that there is a fundamental difference just geographically between the situation on the Gaza border and the northern border. The Gaza border, the settlements and the towns, the kibbutzim, the moshavim, the cities are at some distance from Gaza. Not that helped on October 7th, but there is some distance. But that the towns and the kibbutzim and the moshavim in the north are really right up to the border, that you can see over into Lebanon very easily, and that the Hezbollah fighters are able to come all the way up to literally a stone's throw from the Israeli side, so that the danger is much more tangible.
I'll say 2 things around that. First, the photos that you see behind me are photos of Hezbollah military operatives, terrorist military positions that I took in my visits to the northern border, to the Lebanese border in the past year and a half. I was there every day, and this is what I saw. I saw the military positions of Hezbollah. I saw them spying on me, taking photos on the IDF, binoculars, sometimes armed, uniforms. This is a semi-army force that is, just as you said, just next to the communities. Another difference, by the way, with the South, which works both ways, is the terrain nature, meaning that in the South it is completely flat, and they could just drive through and get to 5 or 10 kilometers very quickly, even if they don't drive on the main roads. Here, this is impossible. Here, they need to if they want to invade, if Hezbollah wants to invade into Israel, it needs to get to the main roads, because the terrain is much more difficult. It's hills and valleys and trees. And I said it works both ways, because it's difficult to trace them once they are inside Israel, hiding between the trees, but it's not easy to maneuver with thousands of forces and easily get kilometers into Israel.
Well, there were reports, and there have been reports even before the war, that Hezbollah had, like as with Hamas, had actually tried to develop a system of tunnels to go under the border and to enter Israel undetected. Is that true? Did that happen?
Hezbollah has a few kinds of tunnels that they all build the same way, but the mission of these tunnels is different. So a few years ago, Israel revealed 6 border crossing tunnels with a military operation that Israel made not in Lebanon, only on the Israeli side of the border. And what we have found astonished us to see, the tunnel was as deep as the Haight. These were tunnels of tens of meters deep and hundreds of meters long. And the openings were inside the Shiite towns of South Lebanon, and there were no exits in the Israeli town, but they crossed into the Israeli side, and they were found on the Israeli side of the border. The problem is that we thought that after we neutralized these tunnels, that the chances, the risks for an invasion, I'm sorry, it's another alert in the north. The risk for an invasion dropped, but actually what Hezbollah did in the past few years since the revealing of the tunnels is creating training and exercises and capabilities to cross above the surface, as we've seen in the south. The types of tunnels, these are border crossing tunnels, but Hezbollah is an expert in working in the underground infrastructure. Since the 90s, we've seen Hezbollah military operatives in North Korea learning how to fight in underground infrastructure and how to drill and excavate tunnels. There are tunnels in Lebanon that connect between the towns. There are tunnels in Lebanon that connect between the different areas of operation of Hezbollah. There are probably explosive tunnels in Lebanon that will collapse on the house that are built above. Maybe even some of them crossed into Israel. They may be tunnels that end next to the border from the Lebanese side, and that way enables them to surprise us. Underground infrastructure is a well-known warfare tactic by Hezbollah, and even though it is not easy to excavate because of the rocky soil, and you can see the terrain behind me, Hezbollah invested a lot of time and money in this, and as you said, it had 40 years to do it.
I will expand on that and just mention again for our viewers who probably don't know this, that not unlike, or actually the same way as with Hamas, the entire semi-governmental and military control apparatus of Hezbollah is underground. The leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, some question as to when was the last time he saw the light of day, because he's been underground in his bunker for quite some time. Largely, I'm assuming because he doesn't. He's afraid of what Israel might do if he ever came up from underground.
He's underground, but he went out a few times, not too many. Very few times since 2006, since the previous war. I must emphasize one thing here with regard to the North. Look, I want us all not to be mistaken. The invasion that we have seen that happened in the South in October 7 was not invented by Hamas. The offensive plan was not written in Gaza. The offensive plan was written either in Beirut and maybe even in Tehran. Hezbollah published a similar offensive plan to invade the Galilee and take over the Galilee about a decade ago. It published it in details, exactly with all the principles that we've seen with Hamas, starting from a barrage of fire, then an invasion into the Israeli communities, taking civilians as hostages to become human shields. All of that was part of the Hezbollah plan. So the people of the North here feel that it's funny to say it, but we were kind of lucky. It's terrible to say it, because we feel that for some reason, somebody along the timeline decided not to start from Hezbollah, but to start from Hamas, though Hezbollah was fully prepared for this kind of an invasion. And for us to see what happened in the South is actually kind of back to the future, is to understand what may happen to us if this threat will not be eliminated.
How can that threat be eliminated?
I don't know. There are various ways, probably not the one that I saw yesterday, a publication that Israel reached out to the UN and demanded UNIFIL to finally, after 17 years, enforce the UN resolution to make sure that the area north to the border, 20 kilometers into Lebanon, will be empty of any illegitimate military presence. This is not happening. There is tons of military presence of Hezbollah and other terrorist factions on the border, which are every day now.
Are they still coming up to the fence?
There are anti-tank missiles every day being launched to Israel, so probably yes. Okay. And anti-tank missiles are not launched from far distances. We had Burkan missiles, which are half a ton weight, that hit an army base here at the border. So these also are not long-range missiles. So yes, terrorists are coming to defense. Sometimes they are getting killed by the IDF, who trace these squads of launching, either before the launching or after the launching. But the bottom line is that we cannot say that South Lebanon is empty for any military presence. What we can say is that Hezbollah succeeded in creating an active front against Israel in the past weeks. And I don't see this ending without, some essence and essential operation. Doesn't matter whether it's diplomatic or military, but something that will truly create a situation that Hezbollah will no longer be there. The UN is incapable of doing that. It's just not going to happen.
No,
we've been waiting 17 years and it didn't happen.
I mean, there are rumored to be 140,000 rockets of various types and sophistication throughout southern Lebanon. How does one neutralize a threat like that?
Okay, so I want to differ between the threat in South Lebanon and the threat from all over Lebanon, because it's different. In South Lebanon, we talk about the missiles and invasion. In all of Lebanon, we talk about missiles that some of them, small amount of them, are also accurate missiles that are hidden in Beirut, actually, in the areas of Beirut, in the areas of the Bekaa Valley, inside the dense populated areas of Beirut.
Just like Hamas.
This is where Hezbollah is. I'm sorry?
Just like Hamas hides the missiles in underneath civilian areas.
Hezbollah is the big brother. Everything Hamas knows, Hezbollah and Iran taught it. And we've seen Hezbollah during the years doing that. That's the strategy, to use the Lebanese as human shields. Everything we've seen in Gaza, all these munitions in the mosques and schools and homes, we will see the same thing with Hezbollah. That's why Hezbollah is holding such a massive civilian infrastructure to make the Shiite Lebanese dependent in this infrastructure, and that way cannot refuse to the hiding of these rockets in their homes.
But doesn't Lebanon have an army? I mean, it's not in Gaza. Nobody can. There's no armed force that can take on Hamas. But in Lebanon, I mean, ostensibly is a sovereign country. Yes, it's under the thumb of Hamas. The Lebanese army is not able to serve as something of a counterweight to Hezbollah.
Look, if there is a family that one brother is recruited to Hezbollah and the other one is recruited to the Lebanese army, they will not fight each other. We cannot expect them to fight each other. Lebanese army is in the consensus among all Lebanese, and everybody participates. It's the only place that left for consensus among the Lebanese, which disagree upon everything, including the fact that they don't have a president because Hezbollah is not enabling that. They don't have head chief of staff. The head of the army is about to end his position within the next 2 months, and nobody knows who will replace him. The whole political structure is paralyzed. The government is an interim government. There is an economic crisis going on in Lebanon. And actually what we're seeing is that the state of Lebanon is captured within the state of Hezbollah. So in this respect, it's very, very different from Gaza. While in Gaza, if I'm talking as an Israeli, it was easy. There is one enemy and we should strike this one enemy and eliminate it. In Lebanon, the arena is much more complicated because allegedly there is a government and there is Hezbollah. But if you look at the details, you see that they are not that separated. Hezbollah is a member of the Lebanese government. It's a member of the Lebanese parliament. And even though there are many Lebanese that are completely against Hezbollah, they fail to disarm Hezbollah and actually fail to prevent this situation that we are facing now, that Hezbollah is posing a threat not only to the state of Israel, but mainly to Lebanon itself.
So let me expand our discussion on 2 points. First of all, the threat from the north is not just in Lebanon; it's in southern Syria, where Iranian proxies are functioning. Not only that, But the truth of the matter is that one of the reasons why Hezbollah is better trained militarily is that the Hezbollah fighters actually participated in the Syrian civil war on the side of the Iranian forces there. Is there a possibility that the border with Syria along the Golan could actually serve either an additional front or as a proxy front for the proxy war in southern Lebanon? In other words, could things heat up actually on Syria as opposed to in Lebanon?
Of course. I'll put it this way. Iran, in the past decade, changed completely the Middle East. This is something that I think we misunderstood. Iran built proxies in various countries in the Middle East. We've seen what happened from Yemen. It's a very good example. Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon. And of course, Gaza and a little bit of West Bank. Yes, we can talk of all these arenas. And Iran strives to activate these arenas against the state of Israel. Except in each of these arenas, there are different interests, different factions. Syria is one of them. In Syria itself, there are different players on the ground. So I'm not sure that each front will be involved the same way as we've seen from the Gazian border. There may be different capabilities and different interests and maybe even different timing. It's not something that, okay, within the next 6 months, this is what is going to happen. We don't know how long all of that is going to last. But the bottom line is that, yes, in Syria, there are Iranian proxies, by the way, including Hezbollah, Lebanese Hezbollah units as well are deployed in the Syrian Golan Heights. And these also have missiles and some capabilities. They're probably not as professional as Hezbollah, but it's another front. And we have seen already, I think, 3 or 4 attacks that came from Syria since October 7th.
So I'm going to ask you a totally unfair question, which is my job. We're about to enter into a 4-day ceasefire with Hamas as part of an effort to get at least some of our hostages free. Does that ceasefire affect? Was Hezbollah a quiet partner to that ceasefire, or is it possible that we might see a shifting in the gravity of not gravity seriousness, but in terms of the effort that Israel might find itself getting more involved in the northern front during the 4-day pause in the south?
Look, I truly don't know. It's kind of guessing to say whether Hezbollah will join the ceasefire or not, but I think we shouldn't be misled by that. And that's the most important thing. The same way that we don't believe that this ceasefire with Hamas will last more than 4 days, and all of us understand that Hamas should be eliminated, we should have the same assumptions to Hezbollah. It doesn't matter whether they will hold their fire in the next 4 days or not. What matters is that they had the same plans and they developed the same capabilities and much more than Hamas, because the missile array of Hezbollah is 10 times bigger than the missiles array of Hamas. And that's why it's so important to make sure that me and my kids can live in peace in the Galilee and not awake from every small noise in the middle of the night because maybe there is an invasion.
All right, we have to close there. I'm sorry, there's a lot more to talk about. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel in Reserves Sarit Zehavi, for enlightening us. Let's hope for quiet times, for the defeat of our enemies, and for getting back to normalcy, although I don't know how many of us here in Israel remember what normalcy was. It seems October 6th seems so long ago. Thank you very much, and take care of yourself.
Thank you.
And here we finish up. Thank you very much for being with us. Please follow Tov, the Jewish news channel on the internet, on Twitter, on TikTok, on Facebook, and wherever you get your media. And we'll see you next time.